Greetings, everyone. Toby Alexander here, and this is the Special Wisdom and Tactics team meeting. And I'm recording this meeting since we have people all over the world in different time-space zones. And in this particular meeting, we're going to learn about altered states, dream states, imagination. You're going to learn about how to use sound tones for manifestation, how to co-create with source, and then you're going to learn about how to clear mental body seals that may block you from remembering your dreams, able to have lucid dreaming, and then able to actually manifest in your dreams. And so for this session, what I would like you to do is to get very relaxed and have at least an hour to where you won't be disturbed. You can doze off into meditation. You probably will as you listen to this and my voice, because the information I'm going to be sharing with you is very high frequency. And so throughout this training, you will be receiving an activation of frequency, even with the information and the voice. And at the end, we will do a very powerful DNA activation and guided meditation that will be the most powerful activation and manifestation that you've ever experienced in any of your existences. And so this is a very special meeting. You won't be the same after this session. You will feel lighter, you will feel amazing, and you will be aligned all the way up from you, your epigenetic overlay up to source. So let's get started. So in order to get the attention of those source fields, there are certain sacred sound tones that we use. And so the first one is called hailing the Akasha God Force energy. Before you do any manifestation, you want to do this. And so here's how you would do this. You would say the following 3 times. Uma e tre ina e kasha. Uma e tre ina e kasha. Uma e tre ina e kasha. And so you can start practicing that. The first time you do it, just say it slowly so you get the pronunciation. And just remember, every time you do this, you're activating dormant fire letter sequences inside of you. So you will feel a lot of energy. You can monitor the energy in your left hand if you want to, but it's not required. So what does this mean? Basically, this means, Source, would you co-create with me? I'm requesting the presence of the God Force. Let's co-create together. So you're putting out a frequency to get the attention of those fields, the Ire, the Mane, and the Manu. The Ire is the divine feminine energy, the Mane is the divine masculine energy, and the Manu is the combination of those two. That's the still point. And so you get attention of those consciousness fields, and you exist in those fields. So you're also getting the attention of the parts of you that are stationed there. And so when these sound frequencies emanate outward, when you make these sound tones, there's a direct response. The next part of this is called the request. So once you get the attention of the God Force energy, this is the time to set your intent in motion. So have a specific intention in mind. Like, for example, one of my clients, her intention was ascension. And so she visualized the trifecta in pale silver in her mind's eye, and then she had a symbol for ascension in the center of the trifecta. She held that in mind before she did this part, which is called the in-breath, the intention embedding. And so you inhale, and then you make this sound tone. Irda shada dikeshe ta'amira pranachi. Again, Irda shada dikeshe ta'amira pranachi. And so what does this do? This is what takes a piece of the hologram through you, through your DNA template, through the manifestation transduction sequence, back through the planet and back to source. So you inhale, you do the son, and when you exhale, you're bringing energy back into the hologram. So basically, this is your manifestation and demanifestation current. So what you're holding in your head and in your emotional body at the time you think a thought, when you inhale, wherever your shadow self, your emotional body, your mental body, your physical body is stationed at the time you think a thought, the imprint gets sent back with the inhale back into the Manu fields. And so that's the in-breath intention embedding. Now, if you have a lot of blockages and you can't go past the 3D, it will go into those Manu fields surrounding 3D. The job of the Manu fields is to uphold the original intention of source, to create in the image of God itself, which is the gift of free will creation aligned with source will. So whatever you put into it, you planted that. It's a consciousness. It's like you're seeding your intention, and it agrees to take whatever pattern you send to it, turn it into a vibration, and then set the mechanics in motion to manifest. And so the part of you that is the Manu is the part that makes it happen. Now, the Man A energy, that's the divine masculine energy. When you exhale, you're using the Man A energy to bring it out into manifestation. You can think of it like this. We all have the Man A and the Ear A energy, divine masculine and divine feminine. The way the source manifests us here is using the Man A energy. That's manifestation. We manifest billions of times per second, and then we demanifest. So we manifest, demanifest, manifest using Man A, demanifest using Ear A, back to source. We're at one with source, and we're in the Manu energy. So that's the way you can think of that. In the days when there weren't DNA problems, you could hold an intention, an image of what you wanted to happen, and then just run the currents. Use these songs, talk to yourself in your head telepathically, exhale, and it would happen. You know, you could hold a swan in your mind's eye and run the songs and then exhale, and then in front of you in your hologram would be a swan. That's the way the masters used to manifest when there weren't problems in the grids and there weren't problems in the DNA. And you can restore that power in you, and that's what we're going to do today. Also, it was much easier to do telekinesis. You know, if you wanted something to move, you would just imagine it and it would move. So in every breath we take, we're using this power. We're really not taught about the power of our breath here, but you can use your breath combined with the sound tones and the codes to change anything in your reality, and especially in your physical body. You can also use your breath to jump time more quickly once your body is cleared of all distortions. And we work with sound and the codes, which are light symbols. And so what the sound can't do, the codes will, and vice versa. So here is the actual step-by-step process a manifestation using the sacred sound tones. Number one, hail the God force energy. Uma etre ina e ekashang. Uma etre ina e ekashang. Uma etre ina e ekashang. Hold in mind the image of what you want to manifest, and then do the intention embedding. Irda shada dikeshe ta'amira pranachi. And so what this has done, you've made a statement. You know that you're creating now. It's a gesture of eloquence. It commands power because you know that you're talking to Source God. You know that you're co-creating with Source God, that you and Source are one, and that you're intending to manifest is actually God intending to manifest right now. So you're coming from that level of yourself as Source. And so that gives you a lot more powerful than if you see yourself as, you know, a lowly, unworthy little being born into sin, praying to an outside God, you know, please God, make this happen, and hoping to get some breadcrumbs from God. You know, this is the way that you know you are Source or God, and so you can command from that level. You are infinite awareness. And so you're speaking it, you're doing it lovingly, you're commanding creation. You know, you're not being a tyrant, you're not bossing the source energies around, you're doing it very lovingly, so you're co-creating and co-manifesting with that source energy. So after you do the intention embedding, you pause for a second because you want time for the intention to be created. So you take an in-breath, and with it, you speak out a line, then you pause. And what you're doing in the pause is where you give it time, where you're allowing the energy transfer to fully transfer, kind of like downloading from a computer, you know, take it from the decision point, and now you're sending it to the output. You know, you're sending it to the hologram, or, you know, like a printer to take. So that's the intention manifestation part. Step 3 is the out breath. That's the mane. So you exhale and make your sound tones. And the sound tone for the out breath is mane ka iha hura hara maya manaki. Notice each of these letters here that are capital. These are pronounced with a long pronunciation. So ma, ne, ka, I, ha, hu, ra. Hara, maya, mana, ki. So this is where the manifestation comes out into the hologram. As you're aware, sound is very powerful. Music affects us. The sounds around us affect us. Language affects us. Most of the teachers and avatars in the past were very well spoken. They could just trigger activations by the way they carried their voice. You know, Osho, for example, if you've ever listened to Osho, he could do that. He spoke very slowly sometimes, but he never had to edit any of his books because he would just speak and they would transcribe what he was speaking directly into his books. They never had to edit anything. And so he knew the power of language. You know, you can use language as a surface carrier. A lot of people tell me, you know, Toby, you know why people love to listen to your webinars is because of your voice. You have some type of, you know, power of activation going on because they feel it. They don't know why they like it. It's not just the information, it's the transmission of the energy. And so, you know, you can modulate your voice using tones that actually activate DNA, that, turn on various chemicals in your DNA. And so that's step 3, the Manet exhale. And then the last thing is the projection. So you pronounce this like this: Ashalum ta ekashade. So let's do this together. We'll go back to the beginning. So I'll do it all together. And you could practice this on your own. Uma e tre ina e ekasha. Uma e tre ina e ekasha. Uma e tre ina e ekasha. Irda shada dikeshe ta amira pranachi. Maneka ihahura mara maya manaki. Ashalum ta ekashadam. So just notice the energy in your body. If you monitor your left hand, you'll feel your left hand extremely active. There's an activation going on inside of you. So the activation will continue, and just listen to my voice. At the quantum level, we're electromagnetic beings. So we're very susceptible to tone. Our bodies are built on the void, the sound, and the light. And so sound and light and frequencies of the void can be used to interface with us for positive purposes. Also, using tones for positive purposes increases your immune system. We can also activate or help others by speaking these tones, and then they'll undo the negative ones that have been programmed. So the whole purpose of this is to get our sound power back, and eventually we'll get the light back that goes with it. And then we'll have our complete power back. This is called bioregeneration. Because what's happening right now, we're composed of these 15 primary rays. For most people, some are being combined correctly and some are not. Also, there's reverse language plugged in. Some of the alphabets we're taught are made of reverse symbols and reverse tones. And the words made of these and then being spoken keep the reversal set in our atoms by the action of talking. In other words, some languages are Christic and some are not. English and language are Christic languages. The other languages are not. So if you speak Spanish or Portuguese, then every time you speak, you're running your energy in a way that it's not designed. And this all started with the Tower of Babel. You probably heard how all the languages got scrambled. So what happened was primary letters that were released, the primary currents were taken out and other letters were put in, and that causes a skip code reversal. So part of the challenge that we have is bringing back the old languages that don't have the reversals. The original language was Anuhazi. And so when you speak in Anuhazi, every single tone that you make is creating an activation. So you could start to practice with this, and you'll notice that when you use these sound tones together, you have an immediate burst of energy and you feel much lighter. Now, in terms of your own personal development, if you are mostly in your feminine energy, then you're mostly using the ire energy. So that's more associated with sound. If you're mostly in your masculine energy, then you're using the mana energy. A lot of people in healing facilitation and spiritual development are more in their ire energy. They love to receive healings, and they love to receive teachings and information, or listen to audiobooks or videos or webinars. But their issue is in taking that information and actually applying it. In other words, switching from the ire to the mana and actually manifesting their practices. You know, being able to charge for their services powerfully, to make offers, to really help on a global scale. And so you can pretty much determine which of these forces you require to focus on and work with. If we need more mana force, then you want to work more with the DNA activations that we're going to be doing and develop your inner sight. So that involves activation of the pineal gland, releasing mental body seals, which we're going to do here in a moment, and really practicing with skills like remote viewing and bilocation. All right, so now what we're going to talk about is how to manifest in altered states and give you some information on what is actually happening when you go to sleep. And so you could just listen to this, and I'm gonna read this to you, and I think you're going to understand why things happen the way they happen now. And so sleep state dreams, as they're known in humanity, are actually an unnatural or inorganic phenomenon, and they come from DNA template distortions. So what you perceive as a dream while you're sleeping is when your D3 mental body consciousness starts entering its natural expansion cycle, where it's supposed to normally enter dimension 4 or higher expansion. But the way it happens now, the DNA template distortions cause your D3 mental body to split into 2 fragments as your consciousness enters expansion. And so your D3 ego, which stands for epigenetic overlay, that part of yourself loses track of itself as the split begins, and your natural, what is called Eros stream of consciousness, momentarily shuts off in the DNA, causing your ego to fall asleep and then to reawaken in the dream state. When your mental body splits, 1/3 of your consciousness gets stuck within the D3 mental body field, while 2/3 of your consciousness temporarily enters the unnatural or inorganic shadow body instead of the natural astral body. The awareness stuck in the D3 mental body experiences the repressed D2 emotional body content of the subconscious mind. A lot of the things that you repress during the day, you experience in the dream state. Also, you experience sub-personality fragments and their dramas, and the D2 elemental kingdom as the dreamscape or the background. Whenever you start activating strand 4 of your DNA template, then you also can bring in reincarnational data. In other words, you connect to your other selves, your other simultaneous incarnations going on in different time-space zones. You also have rapid eye movement, and this is not natural either. So this occurs when the reverse-coded shadow reemerges with a portion of the D3 consciousness that it remains stuck in the D3 mental body. So all the tension created in the DNA template as the 2/3 shadow reverse matrix coding blends with the encoded dream memory of its 1/3 counterpart causes a chemical hormonal response within your brain body system that creates the physical phenomenon of rapid eye movement and various associated brainwave patterns while this is happening. It's basically a mess. So when your D3 mental body has reintegrated and synthesized its encoded memory into the DNA template, the rapid eye movement stops and the consciousness begins contraction of focus into the physical body for awakening. If you have strand 4 distortions, the shadow self experiences in what is called the phantom matrix D3 mental plane. Now, the phantom matrix is like a lower dimensional Earth. It's called phantom Earth. You can think of it this way. You have 7 positive astral levels and 7 negative astral levels. Phantom Earth would be in the negative astral level. And if you have those strand 4 distortions, you will think that you're doing astral projection, but you're really not. This is really misunderstood on the planet. A lot of people teaching astral projection don't know that they're actually going into the phantom matrix D3 mental plane, not the natural D4 astral plane. As well, if DNA template activation progresses to strand 5 on a reverse coding, the shadow self will remain 2/3 of the mental body energy and expand through the density 1 void into the phantom density D4 astral field, unaware of the realities of the shadow self mutation. Basically, between each 3-dimensional density, like density 1 to density 2 would be dimensions 1, 2, 3 to dimensions 4, 5, and 6. There's a void between each one. So when you transition your physical body, the tunnel that people see is the void. So you go through that to get to dimensions 4, 5, and 6, the next density up, density 2. So people with less 4th DNA strand template distortions who have smaller shadows and those working with DNA activation technologies will be able to eventually push through the void net to regain organic body integrity, through which they can then do natural astral projection. Also, when you start activating strand 4, you will be able to have coherent linear dream recall. In other words, you'll be able to remember all of your dreams, and your ego will begin to shift consciousness to the D4 natural astral state rather than losing itself and falling asleep to dream. As the D3 mental body enters natural expansion into the density 1 field through strand 4 activation, your consciousness will first develop abilities in remembering your dreams, and then you'll have lucid dreaming, where you're able to actually control your dreams. And at that point, you can do manifestations while you're lucid dreaming. So this is extremely powerful because as you're aware, the lower you get into your mental awareness, like you go from beta to alpha to theta to delta, the closer you are to being at one with source. You're like in the quantum soup when you're in that level. And so what we're doing is learning how to access these motor skills, which correspond to your higher dimensional levels of consciousness. So you can begin to explore these things when you go to bed at night. And as you go through these activations, the higher your consciousness is stationed, the higher dimension that you will perceive as physically manifest. So for example, if your consciousness is stationed in D5, you'll see as physical the D4 astral plane. So this is when people can see things that other people cannot see, kind of like the movie The Sixth Sense, where the little child is like, I can see dead people. And, this is something that people have turned on, or they could see things in the sky. You see like cities in the sky, etheric cities, or you could see, spaceships. That's the type of awareness that you'll have. And so once your astral body awakens and becomes mobile, it will respond to D3 ego thoughts on its own. So you take those thoughts into actions within the D4 frequency bands. And so if you're embedding thoughts into the D4 frequency band, you will see them as physical here in the 3D. So this is what we're looking forward to. It's a power of being fully awake and engaged in D3 mental plane activities and being a conscious architect of reality. So the first thing you need to know is how it's supposed to work, how it works now, and then we clear any blockages to you being able to do that. Because intended thought directed through the astral body creates thought form holograms that your D3 ego will run into as physically real as your DNA template continues activating. So you're basically, the D3 part of you is moving into the future to meet its creations. Now, let's talk about daydreams and imagination. When the D3 mental body occupies its attention with imaginative play, often referred to as daydreams or fantasies, the ego is in actuality creating. Imagination is very highly misunderstood here. Daydreams are more natural, it's a more natural way of dreaming than is the unnatural phenomenon of night dreaming. In daydreams, your eros stream of consciousness remains coherent and the ego does not blank out and lose itself as in night dreaming. You can think of daydreaming as 3D holographic thinking, the ability to experience thoughts in direct audio-visual form characteristic to imagination or creative visualization. Some people have difficulty being able to visualize, and the reason they can't visualize clearly is because their DNA strand 4 is not active. You've probably heard of mind movies, where they have the movies that guide you through your manifestation and they use sounds and images and those sorts of things. You can do that all the time if you have DNA strand 4 activation. And when you're doing it, you're setting those thought forms in motion. And it's extremely powerful when you use the light, the sound, and all of the sensory focus of that. But the reason people cannot really manifest consistently using, imagination is because of DNA strand 4. It's not active. Also, there's something called a mental body lock seal, which we're going to work on clearing in a moment. And so once we release that, the D3 ego consciousness starts accelerating in its particle pulsation rate, its oscillation. It rises in frequency, and then it's more easily able to expand into the Ire, Mane, and Manu fields that you just learned how to access using the songs, the sacred songs. While the mental body is expanded into the radial body, thoughts and ideas held in awareness will take on immediate auditory and visual holographic translation. So thoughts form scalar templates in the frequency bands in which the consciousness is stationed when the thought is held in mind. The accelerated frequencies of the radial body allow the D3 mind to rapidly view the inner radial body eros manifestation of the thought. And that is what creates the quality known as your imagination. As your D3 mental body holographically perceives the thought forms from the density 1 radial body, the thought hologram and the ego's reaction to it becomes stored within the radial body as a memory imprint. Most people are a victim to their imaginations because their imaginations are filled with fear. So they don't even realize that they're creating these manifestations, and then they're reacting to it and thinking that someone outside of them is creating it. So that's why it's important to learn this. The radial body memory imprint is then mathematically encoded in the density 1, strands 1, 2, and 3 portion of the DNA template as a template for potential physical manifestation. As well, you probably heard that thought forms repeatedly imagine or energize with consciousness frequency in the radial body progressively accrete to acquire critical mass, at which time they become physical manifestations through DNA template projection. In other words, your DNA is like a projector of reality. Your thoughts are the film. If you're constantly emotionally energizing fearful thoughts, you are creating the film that gets projected from your DNA template. So eventually those will flesh out into manifestation. That's how thoughts become things. If you instead imagine joyous and positive things that you desire to manifest and use elevated emotions while you're doing that, eventually those will be projected from your DNA template. Most people are addicted to drama, and they're addicted to the brain chemicals that are released from that. So it's a process of, basically getting out of being an addict and getting more addicted to the positive manifestations, so you run those chemicals through your body. The reason most people are tired at the end of the day is because they're running their chemistry like a roller coaster, ups and downs all days, drama, a lot of negativity, and it's not like they're doing physical labor where they should be tired. They're just running themselves ragged. Now, there is something to know being a part of the SWAT team, and that is there are 24 underground bases around the world that are actually running energy in reverse through the grids. And that's what's affecting everyone's consciousness and DNA. A lot of these underground bases have been reprogrammed so that they're not running those reverse frequencies. We've been traveling around the world and activating certain sites, above where these bases are. But the main control base is underneath Stonehenge. And so this is called the net distortion. So part of your awareness as a SWAT member is in reordering and disabling the net. That was the second mission of Jeshua or Jesus that was not completed. The first mission he did complete, which was to activate the Biveka code in the Stargate at Giza, Egypt, to prepare Earth for the ascension cycle that we're in over 2,000 years later. And he did that. And that's why we're able to use 12th dimensional frequency. But he did not accomplish the second mission, and that is the mission that we are focused on completing. Simple, right? So if fourth DNA strand template activation has not yet begun, or if radial body net distortion is present, the mental body lock seal cannot release. The mental body ego remains stuck in 3D and cannot expand into the radial body for conscious creation, holographic visualization, and DNA template programming. The stuck D3 awareness will have difficulty in sustaining a clearly focused sequential holographic image of desired thoughts and may be unable to visualize at all. Also, mental concentration may be difficult to achieve when focusing inward, as thought fragments from the D2 emotional elemental body, subpersonality fragments, and random radial body impressions containing information from the higher dimensional identity levels and directives from the shadow self cannot sequence properly into the DNA template. As the DNA template evolves to assimilate and sequence expanded perception, disjoined images, emotions, and thoughts may enter the D3 ego mind awareness. Have you ever had that happen where you just have these automatic negative thoughts? That's why this is. Not only the basal ganglia of the brain, but this mess that's going on in the DNA template of most people. And so that disrupts your ability to focus clearly within. If it's a fearful thought, it will frighten or overwhelm the ego with chaotic sensory impressions over which your D3 mind seems to have no control. Now, if the ego mind recognizes that it is the intended co-creative director of this chorus of inner stimuli, that's the purpose of your ego, is to direct. And if it chooses co-creative alliance with the higher power of its own higher dimensional stations of identity, then the ego can begin to develop confidence in its innate creative powers. And so through practice, mental relaxation, affirmative thought choosing, and appropriate spiritual mind technologies, which we're all focused on here, the ego can work with the higher self to get free from the inner net, activate strand 4, and release the D3 mental body lock seal to achieve the expanded state of consciousness associated with radial body expansion. Once expansion into the density 1 radial body is achieved, the ability to focus inwardly more clearly and to create clear mental visualizations will develop. And at this point, you're basically aligning your ego with your higher self. So the higher self can then assist the D3 ego through more direct, immediate telepathic communication. And if you've ever thought, I want to hear more clear messages from my higher self, you're right. This is how we do it. Most people are receiving all kinds of mixed messages because of this net and these DNA distortions. But once this is healed, and that's what we're going to focus on doing today, the D3 ego enters fourth DNA strand activation and eventually learns to consciously shift its consciousness by a decision into other fields of consciousness, even while remaining with your eyes open, in an active, you know, 0 to 3 focus. Also, once you start activating your fourth DNA strand, it begins the awakening of reincarnational memory, interaction with the other simultaneous expressions of yourself, and communication with other life forms from other coexisting space-time vectors. When I first started working with Babaji, all of this had to happen for me. All of these clearings had to happen. And I had done most of the clearings, but he told me in order for me to be able to sense him and hear him, he had to entrain me to him. And so I would always know when he was coming around because I would hear his voice, and then I would hear a buzzing in my right ear. And so as you start going through these activations, you can communicate with different beings, and you can do this in a safe way that does not involve channeling. You don't ever want to channel anyone unless it's your higher self. Also, the need for sleep will decrease. The barriers or veils between the ego and your other states of consciousness will dissolve. Your ego and higher self work together to heal your shadow and to clear all these other distortions. So once you're clear, you realize that thinking, imagining, and daydreaming are actually actions in conscious holographic creation. And you don't have to be stuck here in the 3D. You can go explore the other 12 dimensions of consciousness. You have a 15-dimensional anatomy. So you can explore the other dimensions of consciousness and not be stuck here in, the matrix and what appears to be like a slave planet. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to guide you through the clearing on the mental body lock seal release. And for this, just get very relaxed where you are. Begin to take some deep breaths to slow down your inner rhythm and breathing. And begin to focus on the codes. So I want you to inhale this code to your third eye and exhale it down to 2 inches below your navel, which is called the Iumbi point. This is where the mental body lock seal is. So close your eyes and imagine the code there pulsing. It is commanded in the name of divine love that this code be used to clear and release the D3 mental body Iumbi lock seal now ta Asian Tadoi. Just keep breathing. With your eyes closed. And slow your breathing down to about 1/2 its speed. It is commanded that all blockages to each person here, using their creative visualization, imagination, and inner sight, are cleared permanently now ta Asian Tadoi. Now, if you're monitoring your left hand, you'll start to feel the energy go quantum right now. Feel something release from you, like a cool air around your body. Keep your eyes closed, and I want you to notice how still and light you feel. It is commanded that each person here be infused with new codes, new templates, and new soul programming from their Christos avatar self, now ta Asian Tadoi. So that concludes this teaching and activation. Whenever you listen to this or watch this, you'll receive the same clearing and activation because the energy is encoded. You won't have to do the activation again. but you can listen to go back over the teaching for the sacred songs and the manifestation. Thank you so much for joining. I salute you from my Christos Avatar self to your Christos Avatar self. Namaste, everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.